Welcome to UNCAGED. Today we're speaking with Monika Owczarek. Monika, it's great to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Thanks very much. I'm excited to be
Now,
here.
I'm excited to have you here too. Monika, I got to tell you, I love what we're going to be talking about today. I feel like it's one of the least understood areas, but the most critical areas for every business on the planet. And that means we're going to be talking a lot about sales. We're going to talk about growth. We're going to be talking about how to do that at scale. Monika has all the answers for us. But before we get there, let's tell you a little bit more about Monika. She is the founder and CEO at Strattik Sales Consulting. They're helping B2B tech companies scale with smarter sales and stronger teams. Monika, before we talk about Strattika, let's talk about you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your career.
Yeah, so my career span about 2 decades, and it's been in sales pretty much the whole time. And started out as a rep. I was a top performer, moved up very quickly to managing sales teams as a leader, and then a VP, and then moved on to managing multiple companies. So started out in Fortune 500, then PE-backed and VC-backed companies, and have worked with hundreds of startups, but also in Fortune 500 enterprise businesses. And so, throughout that span, I've been considered the top 1% of sales leaders, but also individual contributors early in my career. So I have a passion. I love sales, and I love helping businesses scale and helping them figure out structures.
Excellent. And I mean, I feel like sales is one of these funny things. I'll be in conversations with people and they'll be like, "Oh, I don't like sales. I don't like sales." And it usually, because it connotates some connection with some horrible experience they had with a used car salesman or something like that. But the reality is, when I look at sales today and I look at what my companies are doing and what other companies are doing, it's so sophisticated now. So much data is involved, and it's really, really interesting. Tell me a little bit about what Strattik Sales Consulting offers its customers.
Yeah, so first of all, nobody likes to be sold to, right? So if you get that icky feeling of that stereotypical used car salesperson, right, selling to you, or you walk away like, oh, I was just really sold to, that's not, nobody wants that. I focus on B2B companies in tech, primarily service-based businesses, so a lot of SaaS, professional services. And, we really look at how do you help a business solve their pain points? How do you help them with your services? But I look at, how do we do that through putting structures in place through the actual sales process? So looking at how do you make sales teams better at what they do? How do you leverage what a top performer does and translate into that the rest of the team? Or, help a new hire that comes on board and have really great onboarding processes that have somebody be efficient and, quickly onboard it with the right processes and the right systems in place. But I also look at things like CRM and pipeline, and how do we automate pieces there? How do you make the interactions better with your customers or potential customers that you're speaking to? So lots of different things, but really looking at a very holistic and strategic way of how does that sales process run, and is it something that's repeatable and scalable for a business?
And I mean, those issues that you highlighted seem almost like timeless, right? I mean, those are issues that businesses are going to have as long as businesses are businesses. But the reality is that like certain topics pop up and become top of mind at various moments. I imagine maybe one of them might be AI and how that's impacting the space. But tell me a little bit in within the world of your customers, what are the key topics that are bubbling up right now?
Yeah, definitely a lot of AI. Some companies are stuck because they don't know what AI solutions to implement. Some have too many solutions because they got excited with all of these solutions and what they can do, but they're not using them to the full extent, or they don't need all those solutions. So we talk a lot about that. The other pieces is on the actual sales team, not having transparency in terms of what the sales team is doing, what's working and what isn't. And so it's really hard to scale a business when you don't know what your people are doing and what works for your business. And sometimes for the smaller companies, I hear things like, well, when I'm as a founder making the calls or speaking to leads, I have a really good conversion. But when I hire salespeople and have them do that, I don't have quite as good conversion there. And so what's the gap there, right? How do we resolve for that? So, those are some of the things that I speak about. Playbooks come up as well in terms of how do we translate what we're doing into a blueprint. And so I work with a whole range of companies, but the sweet spot is like 5 million to 50 or even 100 million in terms of revenue. So companies that are, they have sales team in place, but they really don't know how to scale that and take their businesses to the next level.
And what does like a typical kind of engagement look like? How would it start and how would it build?
Yeah, so it's different for every company, but the first place we start is understanding where they're at right now and what their gaps or their challenges are. And so it's customized for each business because each business is different. The type of customers that they serve is different, the industry that they're in, the product, the complexity of their products, the sales cycle, the length of that. So we really try and, first of all, figure out what that looks like, and then where they're stuck. Is it that revenue has stalled? Is it that their salespeople don't know how to sell and how to communicate value? Is it that they're having a hard time closing? So we look at all of those pieces and then figure out how do we solve that.
So, Monika, I mean, you've worked in this lovely world of growth for your whole career, and the reality is that it has evolved. But I mean, in many respects, some of those principles that you're highlighting, maybe they've sped up, but they've stayed true. Tell me a little bit about kind of like what keeps that joy and passion for this space going for you.
It's always different. Yeah, there are a lot of things that have stayed the same, like you mentioned, but it's always unique. Every business is unique, every challenge is unique. What's happening now with AI and automation, that's putting a lot of changes and opportunities as well, and that's exciting for me. I'm always learning about all of that, and yeah, it's every conversation is different, and even though the basis is similar, there's so many variances, and I just, I love learning about all those different businesses and how to help them. I look at it sort of like a doctor that comes in and tries to figure out a patient, right? And what's wrong with them and doing some tests and digging deeper. So it's a little bit like that where, going in and really not knowing what I'm getting into until we start to dig deeper into that.
I like that. Dr. Owczarek in the building. Let's see how you solve the issues for the patient. But I mean, it's a really interesting time, and I know that everyone's always trying to kind of get that extra edge or that new thing. Is there anything that you've seen recently you've gone like, wow, this is really a game changer?
Well, there's a few things, and again, it depends on what we're trying to solve. One of the things for me that I'm incorporating is dictation, so a tool like Whisperflow. So I'm not typing as much as I used to. I'm very rarely typing nowadays, and it's making my work so much more efficient and so much quicker. So so that's on my end. For businesses that I help and consult, it's tools that help them with automation. So that could be like as simple as having your calls transcribed and record it, and then feeding that into the CRM so that you know what's coming up in terms of objections and how you're responding to those. Which ones are you responding to effectively, or when competitors are coming up? These are things that have been around already for a few years, but I'm still surprised when I listen to companies and talk to companies that don't have that set up yet. something basic like that can really elevate their sales process and the knowledge and having data around what works for them and what doesn't work.
So, Monica, I mean, we live in interesting times. It's a little terrifying to open up the news these days, but there's always something huge. But the reality is that we're going to live in a moment for, I'd say, the rest of our careers that is going through just massive amounts of changes. With that in mind, and when you think about like the near future, like if you were to kind of help these companies think about like the next couple of things that they need to be doing and thinking about, what does that look like? What should the near future look like for a successful team with their go-to-market?
Yeah, so with their go-to-market, be proactive. A lot of times what I see is businesses bring somebody like me in, fractional VP of sales, when it's already at a later stage, when they're a bit of a panic mode. Sales have stalled, the conversion rates have become low. Their VP of sales hasn't worked out. They've hired people that are not working out, and they don't know what to do. So be proactive in terms of what your sales process looks like, and start with the basics. Really understand who your ICP is, know how to sell and communicate to your ICP, and understand the data around all of that. Do testing, A/B testing in terms of messaging and your value proposition, so that you really have clarity in terms of what works, what your customers are relating to, and what helps to close your business. But one piece of advice I would say is, yeah, just be proactive in that and understanding sales and who your customers really are. And if you don't know where to start, if that's not your forte, it's not your background, if you're a technical founder or a product founder, use tools that are available in AI to help guide you, brainstorm, or hire somebody to help you with that, even if it's for a part-time basis or a few hours with advisory work. To at least help you, move you in the right direction.
I think that's really, really good counsel. I had kind of like one question that I had that it kind of comes up time and time again for folks, which is, in relation to commissions. I was on a board call yesterday, and they were trying to figure out how to set commissions, and they said things keep changing. I'm trying to figure out how to model out attribution and things like that. How do you think through those types of topics?
Yeah, the first place you need to start is, what's the goal that you're trying to achieve? And, I've worked with companies that have been 100% commission, partial, small percentage, and no commission. When you're looking at zero commission, this is an area where if you're focused specifically on quality, the quality of the conversations that you're having, and having the right message, you can measure that. So, that's just one example, but there's, different examples based on that. So really understand what you're trying to achieve and what will drive that behavior, and then align compensation and commission around that.
Monika, I love this conversation. As I said, I really think that more companies should spend more time thinking about this. There's a lot of intricacies now, and the data is just incredible. If someone wanted to learn more about what you and the Strattik sales consulting team are working on, where's the best place to find you?
The best place would be check out my LinkedIn profile. And so it's Monika with a K, Monika-OWC is my LinkedIn profile.
Excellent. I mean, Monika, I think I got your last name almost right, Owczarek, but the way you say it is not how you spell it, folks. So take a look at how we've spelled it down below. Monika, thank you so much for being on the show today. We've been speaking with Monika Owczarek. She is the founder and CEO at Strattik Sales Consulting, and she works with B2B tech companies scaling their sales and their growth strategies, and really building solid, strong teams going forward. And we've been talking to her about really the continuing evolution of the sales space. Some things stay true, some things need to evolve, and there's always new technologies that are being put in place to be evaluated. But, trying to figure out how we evaluate them and utilize them correctly, right? So sometimes they get put in, but they don't get used. And how do we make sure that all happens? Monika, thank you again for being on the show, and we look forward to having you back.
Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.